I'm Brent, and this is Faith Talk. Hey guys, nice to have you join us again for another conversation. Today, one of the things we want to talk about is gathering together. Now, a lot of you have probably heard it said that, it's in the Bible that we're supposed to gather together as Christians. And first off, do you know where that scripture is? Where does that actually say we're supposed to gather as Christians? Is that what it says? Dave, what do you think?
Okay, so from my research, it's implied. We have an example of their gathering together. One of the verses that I think we take the most out of context is Matthew 18:20, where it says, "Where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there in the midst of them." And when I was growing up, or when I became a Christian, that was kind of the quintessential verse that was told to me about, hey, this is why we gather together. And in fact, if you go back and start at verse 15 of that same chapter, Matthew 18:15, go down to verse 20 and 21, verse 20, you'll see that it's about church discipline, about when your brother sins against you, going and talking to him or her, your brother or sister, and if they don't listen to you, take one or more with them, etc., etc.
Very valuable topic.
Yeah, for another topic for another time. But
let us know below if you want to see us do a video on that one too.
So some of the verses, so I can find it here. Give me 1 second here. But
if anyone doesn't know, our guest, this is Jesse. Jesse is part of the AV crew and has been one of the team members for ACP for
a while, forever.
5, 6, 7 years now. I don't know. She's usually back running the computer for us and generally running errands and keeping Dave and I sane.
Thank you again for that, by the way.
So, thanks for stopping in tonight and helping out.
Absolutely.
So Colossians 3:16, it says, the Apostle Paul instructing the church says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in songs, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace or thanksgiving in your hearts to the Lord. And then you flip down to Acts 2:42, and they were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer, in verse 46. And day by day, continuing with one mind in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, and they were taking their meals together with gladness and sincerity of heart. So there are examples of the early Christians gathering together. What do you think? Sorry, I've looked at you now. Okay.
Without warning, sorry. Jesse's a little camera shy. This is her first time in front of the camera.
My view on gathering together as Christians and in the church body is you got to look at who you hang out with on a daily basis and how that affects your behavior and your walk with Christ. I've found in my own life that if I do not surround myself with people who do not love Christ, I find myself not walking in a way that I feel He would want me to walk. So when I find myself troubled or upset or having trouble with my faith, I purposely go to those people who have a strong faith in my church, and I gather with them either singly or in a group, and that helps strengthen my walk and my faith as well.
So, would you agree that you think it's definitely implied, even if it doesn't verbatim necessarily say we should get together with Christians, it's implied?
There is so many examples of people gathering with each other all through the Bible that it's just, the only time you see people going off by themselves is honestly to pray, if they need to pray by themselves. Otherwise, they literally say they go by themselves to go pray. And it's almost like they're already in that group with that church body and with those believers. And they have to go off by themselves if they need to pray by themselves.
That's an interesting observation. That they have to go find alone time because they're already with other Christians. That's actually really
Well, Christ did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting observation.
I've
Yeah,
seen him do it a couple times.
yeah. We have several examples where Christ had to separate himself from the disciples to go have some one time
Yeah,
prayer.
concentrate directly on
Garden
God.
of
That's it.
Gethsemane when Peter walked on water.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we all agree, because I'm going to agree with these guys. I think it's definitely implied. I don't know that I've ever found a verse that says, "Thou shalt get together," but at least it doesn't say it verbatim. I do agree that I think it's definitely implied. I think we have a lot of example in Scripture, and I do think there's a time where it's good to be alone. I know a lot of people. I know Jesse likes to go camping in the mountains. I'm a water person. But, Dave and I both get on the bikes. Actually, all three of us get on the bikes and like to go riding alone or together or whatever. And that's our alone time. But I think there's a lot of examples of, we're told in the early part of the church how often they were gathered together, celebrating together.
And that's the thing. I know that, especially growing up, we have our friends, we have our circle of influence, and we like to be around our buddies and, go off and do crazy things. And, for me as a kid, it was noise ordinances and speed limits. I mean, that's kind of what I did as a kid. Let's see how fast we can do a 100-mile trip. 1 hour, yay! But, like to Jesse's point, it's the idea of you have to be careful who you surround yourself with. In programming, those, on the computer, we're a couple of computer geeks. They have this thing called garbage in, garbage out. So if you put garbage into a computer program, your output's going to be garbage. And it's kind of the same thing, at least my engineering brain, if all I'm around is continuous nonsense, continuous sinful behavior, continuous non-encouraging behavior, then I'm going to be the same way. And that's kind of the idea of gathering together. So I could boost that. So that person can boost me up, and that can boost them up as well.
Then let's switch gears a little bit into, so Jesse kind of already opened the door on this. What's the value of being together as Christians? Let's talk about that.
It's not for publics. Although that's good too. Good eats aren't that.
Anytime there is pie, God is there.
Comment below if you agree.
So.
You were starting to say something. Sorry, I cut you off.
And I totally lost it.
What's the value of gathering together?
Well, I found when I gather with other Christians that it's almost like I get, what is the word I'm looking for? It's not faith checked. It's more like I've gotten God checked.
Accountable.
Yes, because it's not even if I'm saying something or doing something, it could be a thought that would pop into my head. Being around other people, either co-workers, people at school, people I see at the bowling alley or something that I normally hang out with, that I wouldn't want God to hear, and I wouldn't really have that thought unless I'm around other believers. And honestly, they say God is always right there with you. And being around believers really drives that home that, if I'm walking with God, do I want Him to see what I'm doing that way or hear that thought I just had? And honestly, if I'm not with believers a lot, that fades. It kind of just fades into the background. And I find myself needing to refresh myself by being around other men and women of faith, because it's like a cold drink of water. It just fills you right up.
I think this pushes beyond church on Sunday morning.
Oh yeah.
And that's one thing I don't want people to be confused about what we're just talking about. We're talking about gathering together. And that maybe that's services on Sunday morning at your home congregation or at another congregation. I know Dave likes to visit other churches, and so do I. Maybe that's youth rallies like ACP. Wink, wink, like that. Not pushing that. Okay, that was a little too obvious. Sorry.
A little plug here.
Little plug, yeah. Love the sweatshirt.
I don't.
Great sweater, right?
Love the sweatshirt.
I don't know these
Thanks,
people.
Dave.
You're welcome.
We wouldn't use our videos to plug our own rally. But, it might be the small groups. Maybe it's your youth group on whatever day y'all meet. Whether it's Sunday, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's another day of the week. I know when I was a youth minister, we had classes, I think, 3 different nights of the week on top of Sunday morning. So it could be that small group. Maybe you have a small group you attend in your church or a youth group. all those things serve this purpose. But I mean,
But let's stop it there for a second. Because one thing that I know that I've seen time and time again is this idea that I have to come to the building. I'm going to come to church, so I'm going to go to the building. And to Brent's point is you can go, it can be anywhere. It can be at somebody's house breaking bread. I had an older couple in the congregation here call me up the other day, wanting my take on some youth ministry stuff and then what I thought about some stuff. They invited me over for dinner.
I love church in the park.
Yeah, you can go have church in the park. You can go do that in the park. You can take your youth group
See
and go down.
God's beauty, look at the river, church in the park.
You can go down to take your youth group and go down to the river, and well, not right now because it's really cold.
Great
Don't-
time for a baptism. That'll
Have fun with that one.
That'll be good for the Lord right
I will
there.
not be there. But yeah, honestly, you can have church in the park. You can have, for goodness sakes, we've had church, if you will, gathering together at Applebee's, sitting there eating appetizers, and it doesn't have to be standing in the building. The building is just a building.
well, then we can take that a step farther. You said you were invited over by one of the couples in your church that had questions. Well, I mean, that's Christians gathering together as Christians. And part of worship, an act of worship, is fellowship. Right? The Bible's clear about that. That's one of the acts of worship. Y'all are getting together to discuss things as Christians. And so that's gathering together, right? I think too often we must be in the church building mindset. And there's nothing wrong with church building, guys. Don't ever hear us wrong on that. All right? If you don't know where we are right now, we're at the youth room at King George Church of Christ building.
We've been busy redoing it.
Repainting it. This is shot exactly at the same location as the last couple of videos. They just redecorated and they're in the process of redecorating. And it's an awesome space for the youth that come to this church to bring their friends and to learn about God. It's awesome. Don't ever do this wrong. It's a great place to be. But that's not all. There is so much more.
You just you can't.
I know, over in my town, we have a theater group. Now, about 60% of our theater group are actually Christians, and about 50% of them, well, I'm not going to, I can't tell anybody's heart, but 50% of them actually go to the same church. And a lot of the times, we actually have the privilege of having rehearsals up in the big tea room.
Wow.
So it's really cool because not only do we get to go and have rehearsals, but since we're already in that space, or even when we're at the theater practicing, naturally things have a tendency to gravitate towards God when you get that many believers in a space, which is really nice to be able to gather even for a completely opposite reason, but to gather with other believers and talk about that.
I know one of the benefits I would agree with Jesse is, for me, is you get beat up during the week, man. Getting together with people. I remember growing up, going to youth rallies was my favorite things because where I was at school, I didn't go to school with other Christians. There was nobody who went, well, I won't say that. I didn't go to school with other people who went to my church,
Yep.
who believed exactly the same way I did.
Same boat.
And so youth rallies were my outlet. And you couldn't go to, I can tell you, actually, I went to ACP as a kid. I loved ACP for that reason, because I got to see so many people that I only saw at youth rallies. And these are people, some of them are still dear friends years, I'm getting old, later in my life.
Oh yeah!
Years and years
Sorry, talking
later
about
in
that.
my life, I'm still good friends with several of those people that I made friends with years ago. And we tell you guys this at the youth rally. You will make relationships here, or you can, that will last a lifetime. I benefited from that. But just the amount of encouragement I got going to events like that, it made going back to school so much easier. Or in this case, it makes going back to work easier because I'm built back up. I feel like I've gotten refueled, and I think that's an important thing because people seem to think that Christianity is like, oh, I'm going to become a Christian, and woo! Well, you may have 60 to 70 years that I'm going to be a Christian. And it's not always easy. Sometimes way down the road in your faith, it's hard to be as excited about Jesus as you once were. You start to wear down And I think one of those things is, I know as adults we don't have as many times gathering together outside of the church building as you do as a teenager that you can take advantage of. We tend to have more youth-related programs. But we don't have a whole lot of large gatherings for Christians at the adult level.
Well, not up here in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, a lot of places they've faded a lot. The two biggest workshops in the Northwest, the two biggest workshops in the country are gone.
Yeah, Tulsa's going.
Tulsa's gone, Renewal's gone, Canoe's gone.
Right.
I think we're down to like some lectureships. Those are great things, but unless you were happening to go into those, it gets kind of sparse unless you make an effort to get together and get that encouragement from other Christians.
One of the preachers I used to work with, in fact, the first preacher I worked with, the guy that baptized me years ago, he said, look at coming together as a family reunion. Now, I had to stop him for a second because I got a pretty screwed up earthly family. But people that need Jesus badly. But that's the hard thing, they need Jesus. And I laugh about that because it's pretty much the fact they need Jesus. Anyway, he says, no. Don't take your mind off your earthly family for a second. Think of it as like that like what you always imagine the perfect family reunion to be. That you come and you're both boosted up. You're refueled. You feel better about things. They're able to be there and help somebody else as well. Whenever the family gets together, whenever the church gets together, it is a family reunion because we are spread so far apart during the week and we are beat up during the week. And I think somehow we've kind of lost sight of that, at least in the developed world, of we almost treat it like a duty. Like, I've got to go to church.
Yep, check off list.
I have checked off my church list. I have taken my communion.
I told you about Abby making checklists.
Yeah.
Check your checklist. I went to church. I went to Bible class.
Oh, don't tell me she's doing that.
No, she doesn't.
Okay.
She loves going to church.
Good check.
All I know is about a year ago, I lost a job that I'd had for like 3 years where I worked every Sunday. So I hadn't been to church on a Sunday for, some kind of main service where I was surrounded by believers for almost 3 years. I didn't realize how empty I was until I got back to church. And by that I mean surrounded by believers and surrounded by God's love, because it's just pouring out of them. They are there to love you, and I think that was losing my job back then was the biggest blessing I've had in a long time, because it got me back gathering around the people I need to be gathered around most of that time.
That's a rough insight to develop.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Sometimes he has to smack us on the back of the head to make us open our eyes.
God did slap you.
For those of you who watch, for those of you who ever seen the show NCIS, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, the main character, tends to take his hand and hit the backside of somebody's head. That's what we're talking about.
God's kid slap.
And that led to me actually having a summer job where I pull weeds and listen to the Bible on my iPhone for 10 to 12 hours a day for 3 solid months. And it was awesome.
Cool.
Guys, we could probably talk about this forever, but we tend to get a little bit long. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Tell us your opinion on what you think the benefits of gathering together with other Christians is. I'm bad at English. But on behalf of Jesse, Dave, myself, and the rest of the ACP team, thanks for taking a few minutes to join the discussion. This has been Faith Talk, and we'll see you next time.